Hello and welcome to the Lower Makefield Township Board of Supervisors meeting, January 10th, 2021. It is 7:39 and we're getting started this evening. In order to call in for public comment, you will dial 646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 230-936-1902, followed by the hash or pound sign. You will have 3 minutes to speak during public comment, and we will give you a 30-second warning. And I'm going to pass the meeting over to Chair Blundy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This meeting is called to order, and I would ask you to join and rise and join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Supervisor Lewis, are you here?
Yes, here.
Supervisor Weiss?
I'm here.
Supervisor Grenier?
Accounted for.
Mr. McCarthy is not here tonight. Welcome, everyone. First order of business. It is my honor to try to take the role of James on this one because we are honoring Patricia Bunn, or Tricia, she has been known, one of our residents who has spent since 1999 as a member of Parks and Rec. And many of you may know Trish, if not personally, then from her impassioned efforts on behalf of the township. One of the charges she led was the creation of a dog park. And Trish's role has been really invaluable. So I will read a little bit from the proclamation for which we offer tonight, and then ask if there are any other supervisors who would like to make any comments. But whereas the future well-being of a community depends on the involvement, responsibility, and discipline of its residents. And whereas Patricia Bunn, or to those who know her, Trish, has been a resident of Lower Makefield for more than 25 years. And whereas the Board of Supervisors appointed Trish to the Parks and Recreation Board on June 7th, 1999. And then we go out to elucidate some of her tenure, some of the things she's accomplished, and point out that Trish has always put the needs of the community first, specifically where it applies to recreational. Therefore, on behalf of the residents of Lower Makefield Township, we, the Board of Supervisors, thank Patricia Trish Bunn for her service to Lower Makefield Township's Park and Recreation Board. Thank you, Trish. Would anybody like to make a comment? Go ahead, Dan.
Sure, I'll just reiterate what I said a few weeks ago, I guess. I had the pleasure of serving as the Park and Rec liaison, I believe, my first year, I believe, as a supervisor, and got to sit next to Trish that year. And it was a lot of fun, I'll be honest. It was a lot of fun sitting next to her. She brought a great deal of practical background and knowledge to the Park and Rec Board. I don't know if anyone knows this, but she has a background in landscape architecture and I'll say construction management. That probably doesn't do her justice, but she brought a very practical sense of the job to the board, which was invaluable for a variety of reasons and projects. Maybe we're kindred spirits in that way, and that we look at things like that sometimes. And she has a great wit, great passion, and as you mentioned, the dog park, but among other things, she was very, very supportive of the scouts and others who were doing projects in the township, and always gave great advice. We didn't always agree on things, for sure, but and we had many conversations both at the board and when we were sitting there and afterwards. But they were always constructive, and I definitely appreciated all the time she put in and the input she provided after the fact. So I'm glad we're doing this as a board. I think she deserves that, and then some if we could. But thank you to the board for doing this for Trish. She definitely is deserving of a special proclamation.
Okay. With that, moving on to agenda item number 4, our COVID update. Actually, Kurt? You're on mute, Kurt.
My apologies. Say again.
We're on to agenda item number 4, the COVID-19 update.
I'm sorry. I have no update right now other than we're continuing on with the protocols as we currently have them. We'll continue to plan to have these meetings remote as well as the committees. And, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would envision, as I said a month or two ago, that I would imagine that this is going to go on at least for several months longer, but we'll certainly keep an open mind and with the concern of keeping the public safe and all of you safe in conducting these meetings. And that's all I have.
Suzanne, can I add something real quick?
Sure, Dan.
Oh, unless you want, sorry.
No, I was just thinking about how COVID continues to impact our community and losses that our neighbors and friends are still experiencing and how serious of an issue it is. But go ahead, Dan.
No, I can't understand. Personal experience, I can't overstate that what you just said. For anyone interested, I think, John, you may have already done this, but I was looking at it today. Bucks County Health Department has a website where you can, you know, the way they've divvied it up in terms of 1A, B, C, and then 2 different levels for getting information about when you're eligible for your vaccinations. If you go on their website, there's a way to sign up for information to see which category you fall into, and sign up to see when a vaccine may be available. You have to put your name and email address and a couple other items in there, but so they can contact you. But it's definitely best way I can think of, other than obviously talking to your own doctor about how to get the vaccine locally here when it's available. And I guess the only question I would have, and I don't know if Kurt would have an answer, if you've heard anything, is have we heard anything from anyone at the county as to when we might be seeing more, when we might be seeing more vaccines coming, or even at the state level coming to us locally, as we all sit here and anxiously wait to address this?
I don't have a direct answer to that as far as when we're going to see more vaccines, but I know that 1B has not started yet, and 1B is law enforcement and some administrative staff that works along with law enforcement and some others. And we expect that to start sometime maybe mid-February. So they're not all through 1A yet. 1B is not started yet. And as you said, if everybody goes on buckscounty.org, they could sign up for the vaccine, give their personal information, and hopefully some word will come down soon when they'll start doing others.
Thanks, Chief.
And my understanding is, in terms of supply, the county hasn't been receiving as much supply that would be through the 3 centers that they're doing, as much as private healthcare providers within Bucks County have received them. So major hospital chains and others have received vaccines in higher quantities in some measure than the actual county has. So hopefully that over time, as supplies increase, the 3 vaccination sites in Bucks County will be fully stocked.
I think that the stats that the county is sharing so far is that we, as compared to the rest of the state, are actually doing fairly well. I think it may not feel that way because maybe we have more 1As than other counties. So, okay, moving right along then to item number 5, community announcements. Monica?
We have Parks and Recreation, digital recreation opportunities are still available and can be found at lmt.org under the Parks and Recreation Department. And in addition to that, we have pool registration opening up next week for discount for the residents. I recommend, if you're a little iffy about whether you want to join this year or not, I would register now so you can get the discount, and you can decide all the way up to the opening of the pool whether you want to sign up. We will have an information meeting on Zoom February 10th for all residents to go over some survey results. You can look for that Zoom information on social media, on our website, and you can also find it in your email if you're signed up to receive emails through the township. If you're interested in signing up for emails through the township, you can contact me directly, Monica T at lmt.org. And also during this portion, there are youth organizations may call in, and I do not see any callers today.
Okay. Well, then we are. Oh, yes.
So I have early stuff today. I'll be quiet most of tonight. I would, be in the time between our first meeting this year and this meeting, on January 9th, we probably missed it for the first meeting, but just wanted to say January 9th was National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So we're a few days late, Chief, but I know when I realized the day, I snuck over with a couple of pizzas for the officers that evening when I was on a pizza run for my family, just because I had to do something. But please, we have an excellent, as you well know, we have an excellent police force. Accredited does, I think we're well ahead of the curve on so many things that I just want to make sure that we get that word out and say, we don't want to do it once a year, but just say thank you to you and your officers for the job that you do. It's certainly not an easy one.
Well, thank you, Dan, and thanks to all the members of the board for your support over the years. It's much appreciated, and the officers appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dan? Okay. Anybody else? All right. Then moving right along to agenda item number 6. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
Moved.
There's
So moved.
two dates, December 16th and January 4th.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of December 16th, 2020 and January 4th, 2021.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please vote by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Ayes carry 4-0. And in case anyone's wondering why I'm being so prescriptive, Janelle has asked me to try to call out who's actually speaking at given times, because sometimes it's hard for her to tell on the tape. So hence my activities tonight. So moving along to agenda item 7, Fred's first treasurer's report.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to pay the warrants for, if I can do this in all one motion, I will. December 21st, 2020, January 4th, 2021, and January 18th, 2021, for a total of $1,346,442.47.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the warrants signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item number 8. We have a presentation by our traffic specialist, Joe. Is he here, Monica?
Yes, we're patching him in right now.
Okay. So do we want to take a motion first, or do we want to have the presentation from a process standpoint?
I would suggest you probably just have the presentation first to get kind of the idea of the scope of what is being suggested, and then you can do the motion after that, assuming that's what's in order.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
So there are actually 2 separate presentations being made tonight, and Joe will be starting with the Big Oak Makefield Road, I believe.
Joe, is your camera?
I don't know if you can hear me. My video is not started.
We can hear you.
All right.
Are you going to be presenting, or will someone else be presenting?
I'm trying to share let me see if I can share my screen. Yeah, I'm locked out. I can't share my video with you because I guess your tech department has to give me permission.
Monica?
Joe, can you send that to me real quick and then I'll pull it up?
You know what we can do? We can pull Joe out of the room real quick, and then we'll get him set up and bring him back in.
Okay.
Okay.
He should be ready to go. Let's do a quick test.
Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, super. All right, so I was asked to come and talk about the two Arley grant projects that we are currently working on at some level. So
Joe,
for those,
I'm sorry. Am I the only person who has a partially obstructed view of the presentation?
Same here, Suzanne. Joe, if you go to the presentation view, it might fix it versus just opening the PowerPoint.
All right. Try this again. It's asking me to bring my share window to the front. Is that better?
Yep.
All right, excellent. So there's two Arley grants that are currently being worked on in the township, and for those that are either listening, and for anybody who doesn't know what an Arley grant is, it's the red light enforcement grants. It started in the city of Philadelphia under a pilot program, and for people who are essentially running a red light, they get a $100 ticket, and it doesn't involve points, but when you pay the ticket, it goes into a pool of money. And again, I think when these projects were awarded, it was only the city of Philadelphia, but PennDOT takes the money, lets the city of Philadelphia reimburse themselves for all the cost, and then a portion of that money is allotted for the rest of the state to ask for it to improve their intersections. It started out with signals, but it's even permitted to be non-signals, but it has to be safety related. So it's a very competitive program. It can be 100% state funded, but since it's so competitive, typically townships offer to match some funds to increase their chances of being successful and awarded the Arley grants. So back in 2017, Lower Makefield Township was awarded two grants. One was the Big Oak and Makefield Road Signal Modernization, and the other one's the Yardley Newtown Road, Mirror Lake Creamery Road. The Big Oak Road and Makefield Road project, it's my understanding, the driving force behind that was for pedestrian safety and accommodating pedestrians. And the other project was more bringing it up from a technology standpoint to help with the bypass in 332. So the first project, Big Oak and Makefield, the estimated cost back in 2017 when the application was submitted was $295,000. The proposed local match was $35,000, which was essentially the design portion. So the township was saying we will design this if PennDOT will fund the construction portions. And the scope of the work is essentially improving the pedestrian accommodations out there. So you'll have crossings on all corners of the intersection with crosswalks and push buttons and pedestrian signals that would have countdown signals and such. So when the project's completed, the township can go back to PennDOT and ask for reimbursement for the Arley awards, and it would be up to $260,000. So PennDOT has $260,000 sitting there waiting for the township to come and claim it after the project is complete. The second project, well, this is the work in progress plan of the intersection. You'll remember Big Oak Road has just been overlaid by PennDOT, and you see, I don't know if you can see in this plan here, all four crossings will have the high visibility crosswalks, but PennDOT, when they overlaid it, agreed to put the older, simpler parallel lines for sidewalks because the exact locations of these crosswalks were not approved yet, and they didn't want to mill out a lot of white surface material unnecessarily. So this is the intersection here. Essentially, what you're going to see, the intersection currently now has one mast arm, and it's very old. The proposal is to put 4 mast arms. So each approach is going to have a mast arm. It's going to have traffic signals out above the intersection that you're facing on all 4 approaches. You'll have pedestrian crossings on all 4 corners, and of course, ADA ramps will be out there. We got to make sure that they are complying with current standards. So that's the essentially what's being done at that intersection. The Yardley Newtown Road, Mirror Lake Creamery Roads. For those driving down the road, you essentially won't notice anything there, but it is an installation of the fiber optic system connecting this signal with the other signals that are tied into the Newtown bypass, and it'll help when PennDOT goes in and with their adaptive system, which is the background system that helps alleviate congestion on corridors. This will enable PennDOT to come in and do that and include these intersections in with that upgrade. So that particular project estimated to cost $79,000. Again, in 2017, the local match proposed was $20,000, and so PennDOT has $59,000 that's approved, waited to be asked for when the project is complete. So again, this project was designed by the previous traffic engineer for the township. They were essentially through it when SAFE was appointed. So TPD continued to go through with the design, and the project is ready to move forward at this point. So the next step, again, the TPD project's ready to go. We can advertise, but the Board of Supervisors needs to approve the advertisement. And I'm suggesting that the Board of Supervisors can approve the advertising of both projects, the second project when that's ready to go as well.
Well, my suggestion, I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Like I said, just going to open up to any questions that people have.
Dave, you were going to say?
Yeah, my suggestion is, even though they're both hourly grants, I think there are separate projects. You want to have a separate motion for each. So
Agreed. So if there's a motion, on the Big Oak proposal first. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we advertise bids for the Big Oak Makefield Road signal improvements.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. Is there any discussion? And I'll start with something very easy, right? I'm pleased to see the work, Joe, over there. That is an active intersection, especially for students who, well, maybe they're not all back in school yet. They will all be back in school again. And the idea of enhanced safety over there is appealing to me. Dan and John, I saw your hands go up at the same time. So Dan, you go first this time.
Sure. I'll second what you said, Suzanne, because obviously that's a concern with students and we have churches in the area and other religious facilities too. So we there's lots of potential foot traffic there. So that's number one. And number two, I guess, is when this was placed on the agenda previously as just like a project that might be out there, we got some questions and maybe some concerns from the folks at Big Oak Sitco. Just nothing necessarily that's specific. Just, hey, we hear there's a project at that intersection. That's obviously where our business is. There's lots of car traffic, obviously going in and out of a gas station. So I guess, Joe, when you look at all this, one, I guess, are those folks aware? Not aware. Obviously, they're aware of the project, but do they know this is happening tonight? Or are there any specific concerns that they brought up that we needed to, that were such that something that we'd want to address prior to going in for something like this, or we've already done it, and how have we done that? And just generally, and Joe, I'm sorry if I missed this, but you mentioned on the second one, I'll ask you a question about the second one, but more tied to the first one, I guess. Did you do the design for the Big Oak Makefield one, or did TPD?
SAFE is doing the Big Oak and Makefield design, and the Creamery Road was done by TPD.
Okay, so you're obviously comfortable with the Big Oak design since you did it. But the question was after you answer the stuff about Big Oak and Makefield, my follow-up question generally at the Creamery Mirror Lake one is, are you comfortable with the design done by others? So I'll stop now.
Can we keep the Creamery?
Oh, that's right. Sorry, there's a second motion. I forgot. My bad. Apologies. So there you go, Joe.
All right. So again, it is a work in progress. We think we're close. We're working on the detailed ADA ramp design. As you know, that can be real sticky, just because it's difficult to meet the tight tolerances. But we also need to get PennDOT's approval before we actually advertise it. So we will be going to PennDOT to get their concurrence. We have been in communication with them. In fact, some of the requirements they have, has been what they have been required of us. But yes, I'm happy with what we have now. It's going to provide, like what was said by Suzanne, there's 2 schools in the area and there's a church there. So there is pedestrian activity, which was the driving force. So this will definitely provide much better accommodations, for the pedestrians that use the signal, and perhaps equally as important, it's going to upgrade all of the signal equipment, which is very aged right now.
Thanks, Joe.
John?
Yep. 2 quick questions. First, on the Sitco, there's no intent to put additional ramping along Makefield Road or Big Oak on the Sitco side, because right now the Sitco, when you drive in through the station, is flush. The gas station is flush with the road. So there's a lot of open areas upon which you can make a right turn in if you're driving north on Makefield Road to get in there. There's no plan to put additional curbing along that road, is there?
Not curbing, but there will be an additional ADA ramp. The one thing PennDOT was insisting on was all four corners would have an ADA ramp serving the four crossings of the intersection. So if you look at what's out there now, a similar ramp will be shown on the other side of that corner, of the Citgo corner.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense because there's a limited one right there on there. And I think that would probably be one of their major concerns if there was a change in sort of the grade at which the curb would be versus the entry into Citgo. The second thing, and just by way of information, and because we're going to get, if we don't say this, we will get calls and or emails. There are no stoplight cameras in Lower Makefield Township collecting fees in any circumstance, in any way, shape, or form ever. And this is where the chief, this is where I make him attest to that. He raises his right hand, says there are no red light cameras, and that saves us a multitude of calls and or emails from people who are morally opposed to red light cameras and whose personal mission is to knock them out anywhere. We are just using the money from the city of Philadelphia, and how kind of the city of Philadelphia for providing that for us. And that is the only thing that's occurring. So those are my two main points. And that's all I have.
Fred, anything? Monica, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment on this agenda item.
Okay, then with that, call the question. All those in favor of advertising the Big Oak Makefield Road project, please vote by saying aye and raising their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, 4-0. So if we could have a second motion on the Route 332 Mirror Lake / Creamery Road project.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, John, and the second, Dan. Any discussion? John gets to go first if he has any questions.
I'll have one very quick one, Joe, and this is not related to us advertising or not. Do you anticipate that there's a chance that it may go over the allotted cost that we've allocated at this time? Obviously, you're not going to know that 100%, so I won't make you raise your right hand or anything like that. But do you anticipate that the bids will be above what we expect? If so, is it going to be significant?
You know, I'm not in a position to answer that. I mean, TPD did the design of that. And again, the bulk of it is the fiber optics type of work. I didn't check their cost estimates for that. But again, it's the amount that's approved is the amount that's approved. So if it comes in higher, then the township decides whether they want to spend the extra money or not. So it's, but I don't have a feeling one way or the other. But the improvements, again, the intent there is to set it up so that PennDOT's traffic adaptive type of technology can be expanded from the bypass. So let's assume it came in double, for example. The incentive would be for PennDOT to come in and buck up, not for the township to buck up, because this really is kind of setting PennDOT up to help their roads better, you know, setting it up for their traffic adaptive system that they have. That would be at least my recommendation to the township. Play hardball if it comes in too high and ask PennDOT to fund the difference.
Although I'm not allowed to ask on the prior project, do you think, my sense is that that's likely to be properly estimated and close to the amounts that you said?
I think it will be. We are recommending emergency
Preemption device.
Thank you. Preemption that wasn't in the scope of work. So as long as it comes in, it can come in. That's not too expensive. So other than if the cost grew from 2017 to now, I'm comfortable. We are in good shape.
Chief, would you please take a few seconds to explain what that is?
A preemption device allows emergency vehicles, police, rescue squad, fire personnel to control the light from their vehicles in the event of emergencies, so they could change the red to green and stop traffic in the other directions.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. Chair. It's fun to say that. So this intersection is one that I go through a fair amount and always have fun with the timing of the lights here. First off, I guess I'd like to say thank you to the citizens of Philadelphia for running so many red lights that they can fund our stuff. But I will say it's no laughing matter. When I was in college, I got hit by a car that ran a red light around a bus that left me laid up for several months. So I'm only half joking on that one. But on this one, I guess sort of building off of John's last question, but also the one that I asked a little bit prematurely, I guess. Sorry about that. Relative to the design, one, making sure you're okay on some level with this design, given your role versus who did the design, and then if as you look at this, there's a question about if it goes over budget. Generally speaking, do we know what percent contingency TPD would have put in on this, just in case?
I would have to go back and check, but I'm sure it's between 10 and 20%. So that's what we would do when we're at that level.
And I guess to your other point, if are we obligated in any way to actually complete these projects if they come in well above budget and we just think we can't do it because they're too much?
Absolutely. There's no commitment. In fact, if they come in under budget, you can still back out. There's no guarantee. On the other hand, you get nothing if you're already invested in the design, so you would be recouping nothing. But there's no commitment.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Sure.
Fred, any questions?
No questions. It'd be nice to see these two projects come to fruition. It's been a long time coming, so I hope that we can all agree to move this another step forward.
Agreed. Monica, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment on this topic.
Kurt has some
I have
comments.
a question for Joe, just for the board, because I'm sure the board will ask me. So I'm going to save myself the step of texting you in a future meeting when they ask. When we get this out for bid, what would you anticipate would be the time frame that we would give prospective bidders that they would need to put together? 30 days, 45 days? What would you anticipate, Joe?
I'd say a 30-day minimum and 60-day maximum in that time frame. Because they're relatively simple jobs. These are traffic signal, so it's going to be the signal contractors that are bidding on it, and it's something they do every day. So, if I do want to add something about the red light running, it now has expanded beyond the city of Philadelphia, and for those municipalities who are eligible, you have to be in a relatively densely populated township. You have to have a police department that is certified, and you have to have, I forget, maybe one other thing, but once you get approved, if you do have red light running in your township, you essentially can collect the fees, it pays for itself, and then the balance that's left, you keep half, and the other half goes to PennDOT to distribute to the rest of the state for competitiveness. So there is an incentive for municipalities to have that technology there. And I believe it's noteworthy that it's reducing crashes because people are a little more cognizant when they go down the boulevard in Philadelphia than they were before the red light cameras were there. So just a little 2 cents for the people who are, maybe not against the technology, but we can see the benefits of it here in these two projects. And if it was in Lower Makefield Township, the township would even benefit more. Both monetarily and from a safety standpoint.
And we understand how you named your company Safe. With that, call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Okay, moving on to agenda item 9.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Dan, you have a public comment on item 7. I just wanted to see if you wanted to take that.
Thank you, Monica. Yes, I do, and my apologies. Can we bring the resident in?
Yes, we have Marilyn on the line.
Okay, so for everyone following home, I inadvertently skipped over the point and agenda item number 7, the treasurer's report, where I asked if there was any public comment, and we had a resident who was patiently waiting. So thank you very much, Marilyn. And with that, please.
Marilyn will have to hit *6 to unmute.
Marilyn, if you could please press *6 on your phone. Oh, there you are.
Okay, I'm unmuted, but I'm still at the beach. Okay, recently in the course of my work, when I had edited something, I had come across the word warrant. Now, the word warrant means to receive something, not to give something. And when the treasurer said the warrant list, what does this include? Obviously, it's money that's being paid out, not coming in. What is the warrant list and what items are on the warrant list? And is there any place that we can view those items as to what they are?
Kurt, do you want to take that?
Warrant list is a summary of all bills that are paid. And just so you're aware, the detail that we provide now was implemented a couple of years ago. First, I think originally when Supervisor Lewis was the chair, and then carried over with Dan and so forth, which outlines the dollar amounts per budget category to get to the total dollar amount. It would not list, for example, if there was $38,000 in bills that were 50 checks divvied out for that. It would not be a laundry list of 350 checks. It would be dollar amounts that are listed that we post that show each of those categories and what the method of payment was.
All right. Where is this posted?
I believe we put the warrant list and the treasurer's report online. I'd have to double check where exactly that's placed.
All right, but it cannot be called a warrant list. A warrant is something that you get. It's not something that you pay out.
So we'll take that under advisement.
Okay, and I'd like, Kurt, if you have a chance, could you please send me the place where on the site I can see what a piece of paper that you held up and to know what it is and what items are on there. I think it's important that as a township resident that we know what items we're paying for, even if they're minuscule amounts.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. And again, my apologies for...
I'm sorry, Susan.
I forgive you. I'll just,
Queens to Queens.
Yeah, I'll run over you and McCaffrey's.
Suzanne, I'm sorry. 1 second, please, if we can leave her on here. I know we know who she is, but for purposes of the record, if she could give her name and address for Janelle, that'd be appreciated.
I'm not good at this stuff. Go ahead, Marilyn. Please state your name, your full name, and your address.
Okay, Marilyn Huret. It's Huret, and I'm at 484 Kings Road.
Thank you. And Dan, you wanted to say something?
I'm helping out here. If you go to under the lmt.org website, under government, and then you go down to township departments, if it opens up a window for finance. If you click on finance, I'm doing it right now. There are treasurer's reports listed there. I don't believe I think they stop in July 2020 based on what's posted here, but that's where they've been posted for quite some time. So
yes, but it cannot be. A warrant is something that you receive.
Thank you, Marilyn.
It's not something you give. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we return to agenda item 9, engineer's report.
Yes, alas, I am not at the beach. You have within your packet my engineer's report. So I'm going to dive right into the agenda items. The first agenda item is to consider the final escrow release for the Lower Makefield Corporate Center North Campus site. This would be subject to audit by the township. All of the work over at the Lower Makefield Corporate Center has been completed. There are no public improvements. This was all internal to the site, and thus no maintenance bond has been required for this work. So we are recommending release of final escrow in the amount of $1,679,700.
For the North Campus?
This would be for the North Campus, correct?
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Seconded by Dan, who's on mute. Is there any discussion? Of course, Dan.
No basic question, Andy. It sounds like you're comfortable with everything. They've checked all the boxes and they're not leaving us hanging on anything.
No.
Fair enough.
Kurt, I can't tell if you were trying to make a point or.
No, I'm sorry. I was trying to read something I dropped on the floor.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, is there any public comment?
No public comment on this item.
Okay. Then with that, I call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion's passed 4-0.
Similarly, on the South Campus for the Lower Makefield Corporate Center, we're asking to consider final escrow release for that project, subject to audit by the township. The work has been completed. Again, there are no public improvements, so there was no maintenance bond that was required to be posted. So we are recommending the township release final escrow in the amount of $1,186,900.
So moved.
Thank you, Fred.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Second. Any discussion? I'm going to assume Dan has the same question. Andy, you're comfortable?
I am comfortable with the work that was completed. There's no outstanding items.
Any other discussion? You're welcome. Is there any public comment, Monica?
There is no public comment on this item.
And then with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And I don't know if people have had a chance to go oversee the improvements, but I think they look fabulous and really have increased the overall aesthetics of both campuses. So,
I would agree. And considering that we are tenants in the North Campus, we're very happy with the improvements that they've made and look forward to many breakfasts over at Dunkin' Donuts there.
We can tell.
Or ping pong.
Come on.
Oh, Fred. Okay, moving on to 9C, Andy.
Yes, this would be to consider the advertisement of the 2021 Liquid Fuels Road Program. I'm going to share my screen just to kind of give everybody a little, can everybody see that? This is the location map for the roads that are included in the 2021 road program. So just to give everybody a little bit of a bearing, this is Edgewood Road and Yardley Morrisville Road within the location map. Included in the road segments included in the 2021 program, just to summarize, Black Rock Road from the Canal Towpath down to Ardsley Road. Then there's Westover Road, Vernon Lane, Ovington Road, Tudor Lane, Shelley Lane, which would be both east of Westover Road and also west of Yardley Morrisville Road, which coincidentally, the piece in the middle was recently paved and is in good condition. And so that has not been included in this year's road program. Effingham Road, there's the other portion or segment of Shelley Lane. And then also over by Sutphen, we have Friar Drive, Teach Drive, Trend Drive, and Winwood Drive. This totals approximately 2.9 miles of roadway. The estimate that we, based on final quantities, is approximately $620,000. So all of these road segments are base bid items, and we have no alternate bids. And so the time frame then would be if given approval for advertisement, we would advertise Friday of this week and Tuesday of next week. We would have everything bid out through the Penn bid program. We tentatively have a bid opening scheduled for February 11th, which would allow plenty of time, given the township's responsible contractor ordinance, to review the bids and evaluate. And then ultimately, we would be looking at potentially an April-May construction period. I'll include within the scope that all of these roads are to mill and overlay. So removing 1.5 inches of asphalt and placing 1.5 inches of asphalt. There's approximately 19 ADA ramps that would be upgraded to PennDOT current standards. And there's also some inlet repairs that are needed. And then along Black Rock Road, where there's a double yellow line down the middle, we would be including our reflective pavement markers in that area. So that's pretty much the scope of the road program and the schedule. So we're asking for consideration of advertisement of the 2021 Liquid Fuels Road Program.
So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Fred. Andy, I'm going to start off, you mentioned that there's no bid alternates, and I'm wondering if we can include a bid alternate, and I would put forth Silo as a potential for that.
There's approximately, the remaining portion of Silo Road that is to be paved is estimated to be $120,000. So that would increase the amount of the road program from $620,000, which is just the construction estimate. That doesn't include engineering and construction management costs. And it would increase the scope by $120,000 approximately.
Kurt?
So I want to point out a couple things for the board with that. If that's something you're interested in, that is an alternate. You don't have to do it. 2, the price that Andy provided for the estimate right now for the road program is $620,000. We have $645,000 budgeted. So if his prices come in, right, we got $25,000 in room. And I know there's a lot of interest in seeing what this is. Listen, if all of those bids would come in and they would blow the doors off, I'll be the first one to as you know, give always my financial concerns. But in the end, there's a little bit of room to start, and we could see where prices come in if that's the will of the board, and the numbers will speak for themselves.
I mean, obviously, I like to have alternatives and possibilities. I agree with you that if the numbers come in and it's not doable, then the answer is easy. That's the beauty of the bid alternate process.
Well, and I'll say this, Andy's very good at what he does in pricing, but there's always things. So Andy's $620,000 estimate, hopefully it comes in there. If the bid for the base bid comes in the 650s or something, that's not far off, but that'll affect things as well. If the base bid comes in at 590 and we bid 645, already we're dealing with a healthy gap there in terms of money that could change the nature of the discussion. I've taken part in things where very good engineers have estimated prices that ended up, the doors got blown off on the price, and we've even rebid it because they came in so high. So you never really know.
I will say this, that the asphalt price from last year, the asphalt price was $469. That's the oil index from PennDOT. December of this year, it's down almost 15% from that. But keep in mind that that is just the material cost. So it's a small portion of what this estimate involves. A majority of that estimate is in the labor costs, in the equipment costs that the contractors need to complete the work.
Understood. Dan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I agree. I like the approach of adding bid alternates whenever we can, just because it's like having a shovel-ready project, on the hook just in case. Assuming we're pretty close, Andy, an estimate, and the bids come back pretty much the same, but we do have a little breathing room there with the 25K. I'm wondering if we add possibly, if you have anything on the list in close proximity to the primarily sticking geographically close to each other, right? That makes it easier to get these projects done with MOB and DMOB. If we have any other stretches that are more in line with, say, a $50,000 as another bid alternate, in case we don't have enough to hit that 120 or so, but we have enough, we get enough of a breathing room to get a section of road that might be 50K. I don't know if there's anything not on your wish list per se, but on the list that's close enough that, hey, that might be able to sneak in if it's tight. But if we get a lot of extra, then we can move on to silo or something like that. That's and put both of them in there if you have. I don't know if you have that.
Like a second bid alternate.
Yeah, exactly. One that's a little closer to, a little lower in price that might be closer to what our total is, and then one that's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but if we get lucky, we might be able to do it, kind of thing.
So, in looking at, I believe that we looked at silo because that is on next year's list, and that would be bumping a road up 1 year. There are a number of other roads that are on next year's list, some with a condition rating lower, meaning in poor condition when compared to silo. And that would be Ashbourne Drive and Dorothy Drive, which is up, I guess, north of Quarry Road in that neighborhood. Those would be approximately 40,000 for Ashbourne and 32,000 for Dorothy Drive.
But Dan, obviously those aren't, I know what your point was. Is there anything immediately proximate to where we're paving? Andy's obviously pulling dollar amounts and not roads we would have in the next 2 years listed. So
yeah, I get what he's doing versus what I'm saying, because usually you can get, if you're going to get a good bid alternate, it's usually going to be something in closer proximity because they don't have to move the equipment as far.
You don't have to restage, right?
Exactly. And obviously the areas we've called out, Fred, I think that's kind of your old neighborhood right back there. I know when we walked that, there were some ankle breakers out there. So if there's anything, especially if there's anything in that range that's on the list in the next couple of years that would be closer to that neighborhood, just to get it done, that's where I would look personally. If there's something that's on the low-hanging fruit for the following year that's in bad condition, that would still be in that range, I'd be okay with that too if you got to move equipment a little bit. But that's my general train of thought. Not opposed to the silo road idea. That may be a bit of a, just listening to the numbers from Andy, I think that may be a little bit of a stretch to get in with this as a bid alternate that we could cover this year, but it's one worth having on the list if we can, is how I would look at that.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, in general, since I've kind of always pushed for bid alternates when I first joined the board, I think there's definitely an opportunity here. And it doesn't hurt to put silo in as a bid alternate. It doesn't cost us anything. On those lines in the 2022 program, Inverness and Ashbourne and Dorothy Road are both, 40 and 32 respectively. They're close to silo and not close to the areas that we're looking at. Nothing in the 3-year plan is actually close to what's on the list for 2021. So if I look at what's in 2022 and 2023, they're throughout the township in other quadrants. So I wouldn't have a problem if we, and your belief, Andy, based on your reviews, Ashburn and Dorothy are the worst, the 2020 roads, and they have a lower cost component.
Well, I would say that Jacob is the worst condition out of all of the 2022 roads, but Jacob is also a half a mile long. So
yeah.
So John, and for the board, Andy's reading off a list that I can. There are many roads in here that hit that. If we're talking like Dan had talked about the $50,000 threshold that he talked about, there's Inverness, Ashbourne, Dorothy, James Court. We have at about 30,000. Green Meadows at 47,000. And keep in mind, some of these roads that sound higher or lower, a lot of times it's based upon the width of the roads. Those wider roads are more expensive to pave. The only thing I will caution you on is the more alternates you put in, and Andy, you could disagree with it. The more alternates you put in, the more likely, they juice those prices up higher because, I think if you pick them down to one or two roads, you're more likely to get, the better pricing than if you make that a never-ending list of alternates.
Of course, sort of a question of auction theory, though. If I could get more revenue, right? I might bid less on those just to see if I can get a higher take rate. But it could be reverse. I mean, certainly an option there.
Well, and I think the main thing to consider is, the point that Dan made was, every time that they have to remobilize equipment or move equipment, if you're going from silo, but then another alternate and you pick that alternate up and it's not a street that's immediately adjacent to it, they have to move equipment and that's going to cost a couple of grand to do that.
So I think we need to consider if the maker of the motion would be willing to amending the motion, but I'm not sure if we've landed on exactly what the amendment would be.
So you have to decide, number one, how many bid alternates and identify the roads subject to those, I guess, would be the way to do it. So
right. So I would ask that the first bid alternate be silo, and I'm open to what the second bid alternate would be.
Yeah. Can I ask Andy a question? Andy, I'm looking at the map you mentioned Jacob's obviously too long. I'm assuming that's way too expensive. But I'm looking at around there. You said Inverness is on there, and Dorothy and Ashbourne.
Yes,
correct.
All of those.
Brentwood, Fairfield.
Oh yeah, so it's all that area off of Quarry. And they have beat up sidewalks too, if memory serves. I don't live too far from there. I've run through there. If you're able to, most of those are connected, and then off the end of the line, so to speak, if you're trying not to hopefully not beat up something next year that you fix this year, to me, Inverness is at the end of that chain. It's a cul-de-sac, I believe, and you wouldn't have to drive over it next year if you're bring heavy equipment over it next year if you're going to do Jacob or Ashbourne or Dorothy or any of those. It's kind of off on its own. It's an isolated
cul-de-sac. Yes.
So to that end, that makes me think that might be a good second bid alternate that we could get done without potential damage for next year. Any of those other roads, portions of them might be sort of isolated, but for the most part, they're all connected and active, and you'd probably be driving over with heavy equipment no matter if you're doing any of them. So unless Inverness has some weird quirks about it that put it up at a high number, I think from that list, it looks like Inverness to me would probably be the best one. Unless you disagree, I'll be happy to accept that. But I'm just looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah, I walked Inverness October of this year, and it is the one that you can definitely isolate from the others. So that wouldn't be a problem.
Not to complicate this for the board, but Dan, taking along your thought, Andy, is James Court really like this in the same situation as far as being isolated, that it could be done and then it wouldn't need to be driven over if you did that.
That's correct.
And just
I didn't see that. I see that one too, Kurt. Yeah.
And just for the board's sake, both of those price estimates are approximate. They're, Andy, don't correct me. I know you will because you're very precise. We've estimated those within about 10 to 15% of each other, both around $30,000, give or take a couple thousand.
So do we have then the second big alternate? Is it Ivanus and James or one or the other?
Maybe we have 3 alternates for each one of those 2 roads and then one for Silo. And the reason for that is depending on what we get back, if we have room, we could do 2 of the 3. If we feel even stronger, we could do Silo and not those 2 and then go back at it in a more quadrant base next year.
So then is the movant would be willing to amend the motion so that we had bid alternate 1, Silo, bid alternate 2, Ivanus, bid alternate 3, James. Would that be the consensus of the board?
Did I make that motion, Suzanne? I did. Okay. Yeah, I would be happy to amend the motion as such. And Mr. Trulove, if I need to say that out in any more detail, please let me know.
I think the record's pretty clear. I think everybody's discussed it. I appreciate everybody's contributions. I've stayed silent because I don't want to mess up the process. So everybody's been doing a good job.
And the individual who seconded the motion? Thank you, Fred. You agree with that amendment?
I do.
Great. Excellent. So with that, if there's no more discussion, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment on this topic.
Okay, then call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
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 All right, then the motion as amended carries 4-0. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. And if there's any questions on the rest of my engineer's report, I'm happy to take questions on it and the rest of the report as well.
I don't see you, Dan. Yes, Dan.
Sorry, I have to ask because we just so that we can all hear it together. What's the latest with our neighbors at Regency and the issues surrounding Caddis?
So the latest is that as we discussed, I guess at the last meeting that I provided a report on, the painting of the parking lot lights was completed and it reduced the amount of light output onto the adjacent property. The shields for the wall light fixtures were delivered to the site or were shipping to the site. They expected to receive them this week. I have a phone call into the developer to see if they've actually received them this week, but if they have, then I anticipate them installing them by the end of the week. If not, then certainly next week. And the dumpster, the portable toilet that was on site, those have been removed from the site.
Okay. So in terms of items that, I'll call them mitigation items that we've been looking at, right? It's the painting of the parking lot fixtures. It's the shields for the wall fixtures. Yeah. It's the potentially in the spring, some trees in the area between the 2 properties.
Correct.
Is there anything else is there anything else on that list to keep an eye out for and to see how it's working?
One of the residents made a concern about electrical equipment that was on site and the safety of those. They had actually called OSHA, and OSHA had completed an investigation and responded and said that it was not an issue. From my understanding, that resident has appealed that decision, and I think we're waiting to hear back from OSHA based on their review of that appeal.
Right. I'm more. I guess I'm more focused on the buffer, potential light pollution, stuff like that. That we or may still be active in addressing.
Yeah, no,
those are the big three.
The three items that they were going to do was the light fixtures at the parking lot, which they've addressed, the wall units, the shields on the wall units, which is imminent, and then additional plantings along the buffer there.
Okay, so slowly but surely we'll be seeing progress and upgrades hopefully, and I'm sure we'll be getting lots of updates from our neighbors there to see how it's going.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, we're all good? Then moving on to, thank you, Andy. Agenda item number 10, project updates. Kurt?
Before I get to that, can I just make a couple of points on the caller from earlier?
Sure.
I want to make sure I'm clear. First, Dan, thank you for the update on the treasurer's reports. I don't know if you refresh your screen or not or look. Earlier today, we tried to get those caught up, and I thought they were posted. That would have included everything up to and including November. That December report would not be included yet because we're not fully reconciled. We'll put a tentative December treasurer's report out probably in the next couple of weeks. And then, as you know, that can get tweaked when the audit starts as far as any other reconciliations back to the previous year. And I do want to correct myself on another thing, and we are going to correct it. This list that I held up, that I said we put online, which is, which shows what for this meeting would show obviously the bills that we pay. And then the second meeting would also show the transfers, is not put online, and it should be. So I will work with our tech as far as beginning to put this on in anticipation of every meeting that the public can see what you all are reading. I apologize that was misrepresented, but that will be put online. And if you don't see that, Dan, I'll make sure that by tomorrow that those treasurer's reports are updated until up with everything we have up to and including November.
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to be already updated on there, but yeah, we're updated from, just so everyone knows, in case you're interested or following along at home, we've got the December 2018 year end through July of 2020 on the website right now. And if they're working to put up more soon,
it should all be out tomorrow. That was we put that in. Yeah. If it wasn't today, it was yesterday. So it should be up there soon. And then the other thing, just we can talk about this. I've worked in several towns that have called it a warrant list or bills list, with my understanding of the word warrant meaning authorization. I'm not an attorney. We have several of those on here that I will defer to. I've seen other towns just listed as a bills list. So that's at the pleasure of the board. To reports, I don't have much to talk about. I am anticipating that Sandy Run should be, if it's not out, wasn't put out today, it'll be out in the next day or two. There was a couple of the changes that you obviously are all aware from that presentation that were being done. Today we had the meeting with Pennsylvania American Water, which included Barbara Kirk from the solicitor's office regarding the easement that we need with that project. I don't want to say it's a glitch, but because this is PennDOT funded, PennDOT wants the easement to be in their language and their wording, which doesn't offer much flexibility. So we're talking around some of the issues and the things about maintenance and things that would typically be part of that PennDOT isn't too flexible with. So we'll come up with some separate way of a memorandum of understanding or what have you regarding those maintenance issues that may not be able to, that could be recorded, that may not be able to be captured in the legalese of the easement agreement. PA Water said that they would likely be content with that, just as long as it was understood who does what when in the granting of that easement. And I would expect then, hopefully that can be resolved. We're scheduled to meet with them again in 2 weeks. That can be done fairly quickly. And as a reminder to the board, that is a project that will be bid out by PennDOT, not by the township. So with that easement, then we should have most everything turned over to them to allow them to proceed. And we'll certainly continue to work to nudge them to have that out on the street to be bid. So that can be done hopefully later this year. I don't have an update yet, and I'll continue to talk with Andy, who's the person that bird dogs this with the Woodside Bike Path multimodal grant request that I think we're anticipating hopefully to get a decision on in February. We have budgeted and have the set aside for the match that we had indicated in that grant request, and we'll certainly keep you in the loop on that. I don't know if there's any other questions in regards to those things, but from the board, but that's all I have on the projects.
That would be March is when we're anticipating hearing back on those grant applications.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the board? Okay, well then let's move along to item number 11, which again will be Kurt, manager's report.
Dan, and I like to do this because it's fun. When she asked if there was any questions, my eyes go right to you.
I was doing this, but I didn't get my hand up into the camera high enough to tease her.
So under the manager's report, item number 1 that you have is this resolution that we do every year regarding, and if you have that in front of you, and I did ask Dave, because I'm not a lawyer to do this, but outlined in that resolution are the various items that we would be getting rid of or having shred that are outlined there that we do every year. We're required to keep all of the records that are outlined there for a period of 7 years. And then obviously every year we rotate one of those years out. So I'd ask for consideration of that.
I have a motion in regards to resolution number 2438, destruction of records.
So moved.
I'll
second it.
Thank you. Second to Dan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Is there any public comment? Too late, Dan.
No public comment.
Discussion, Dan? Okay, so with no public comment, let's call the question. All in favor, say vote by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
The next item I have for your consideration is a request to authorize the RFP for pool painting. If you'll recall, we instituted this, that we do this every year, put out for bid. As I had outlined in my report, if you'll recall, last year we were going to paint 2 pools. You all had granted that authorization when a couple of weeks later or a month later, everything happened that shut us down. The vendor had already purchased the paint, and it certainly was the right thing to do. That what we came up with is that we would buy the paint from them that they had already paid for. But then obviously they didn't go and paint those pools. So this year's RFP is different in that it'll be to paint all 4 pools, but we have the adequate supply of paint for the 2 pools that we intended to paint last year. So overall, the price will be less this year because we paid for the paint last year and have that on hand. So I'm asking for consideration to allow that advertisement to take place.
Do I hear a motion? Thank you, Fred.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. So the only thing I just want to kind of repeat what I heard, Kurt, is we had instituted a process of painting the pools in alternative years to try to help defray the cost because we were unable to paint last year. The pools that were scheduled to be painted in 2020 will be painted this year along with the pools that were scheduled for 2021, but there is some cost saving because we already have half the paint. Correct?
You said that far more efficiently than I did.
Like to talk about pools. One day I'm going to get Monica to change the color. That will not be today, though. Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment on this topic.
Okay, with that, I call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
As you'll recall recently, I don't know, I've sort of lost track of time here. The presentation was made by our Park and Rec director for our 9/11 committee this year, the 20 years since 9/11, and having everyone come together for an acknowledgement this year. And part of that presentation included how that board would be how that ad hoc committee would be constituted. One of those positions was a member to be appointed from the Park and Rec Board. The Park and Rec Board had recommended that Mike Brody be that liaison, and that is on the agenda for your consideration and authorization to put Mr. Brody on that committee.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. Mike Brody to the 9/11 20th Anniversary Remembrance Committee.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion about Mike Brody?
Will he be a liaison or will he be a member?
I can answer that. He would be a member.
Be a member. Okay.
Yes. Dan?
I think, and I never call him Mike, so it's kind of odd. So I'll just say Brody because that's what he goes by. I think Brody would make an excellent addition to this group. He's he works in the city. He's very involved in all things Park and Rec and the parks, and I think he'll be a very thoughtful member and he'll bring a lot to the team. So I wholeheartedly support Mike or Brody.
I know we all were touched in different ways on that day. I know Mike was in New York, worked very close to the towers, so I second what you say. And with that, if there's no more discussion, is there any public comment on Mike Brody?
There is no public comment.
Okay, with that, I call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Brody motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And I would anticipate here very soon that we'll be coming forward that Monica has been gathering information on community members at large interested in serving on that committee. That the goal here is to move swiftly to get that committee seated so that they can begin. So that'll be coming soon, and we'll have more for you probably in the next meeting or so. The next item I'd ask for consideration is as part of the approved 2021 budget was the purchase of a paving roller that we would be actually doing from the Road Machinery Fund, where we have financed pieces of equipment that you're aware over 3 to 5 years. The budgeted recommendation that was approved was to purchase this outright. We had budgeted $45,000. That price came in slightly less than that. So I'm asking consideration to purchase that paving roller.
Your motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Seconded by John. Any discussion?
I'm
sorry, Kurt, you're on mute and John would like to say something.
John, go first. I forgot to add one thing. I want John to go first.
With this roller, we could actually help do some minor road repairs in terms of repaving, potentially down the road. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this would allow us to do small portions, stuff that maybe doesn't require detailed cutouts and stuff. So from that perspective, it yields some additional flexibility, and I would be supportive.
Kurt, go ahead.
Okay, just real quick, a couple things. So yeah, John, actually that's the case. Right now we're doing different areas where we'll do, we'll cut out pieces of asphalt and we'll do sort of half lanes. You all are going to be having a paving discussion, and I would like to have in another month or so to talk about the department's use to maybe go beyond that would be the goal. But I do, just to make sure we're on the record here with this is an item that was bid through CoStars. So we satisfied the bidding requirements for that as a member of CoStars. And that would be purchased through Best Line Equipment based upon their bid to CoStars.
Dan, I know you had.
Sure, thank you. Kurt, how many rollers or similar pieces of equipment do we have in our lineup thus far? We have one existing roller. This would be to replace that. Okay, so the other one is, if you could give me a real quick, I'm assuming you're going to say it's old, out of date, and beat up, and we need a new one. Is that fair? Okay.
saying yes.
He's nodding yes. And that's all I wanted to know, because obviously we need a piece of equipment like this. Times are a little bit tight, but we still need to replace things to get jobs done.
Greg's estimate is that the roller that we have is between 30 to 35 years old.
Still younger than me, but it's not saying much for a roller. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment on this topic.
So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. And
I'm sorry. Thank you. Next item on the agenda has to do with some work on the Janney Brown house. As we have talked about over the last year or two, the presence of lead-based paint throughout the area of the farm has been, I think we've recognized that it's prevalent. We've had Remington Vernick examine that. There's 26 shutters that are on that house that we have had removed. There's, besides the abatement, they would need to be repainted, and there's some modest work that needs to be done on 2 of them. There's also 2 windowsills down there that would need to be replaced. We had estimated the cost of that work to be between $10,000 and $12,000. Under the second class township code, where prospective work of that cost would not require to be formally bid. Township code says that if work is anticipated to be in excess of $11,000 in change, you need to try to get 3 written quotes. So because we had approached this, that it could be at or around that dollar amount, we started with the basis that we would need 3 written quotes. As you can see, the dollar amount on there from this prospective contractor, it's less than $11,000, which would indicate we didn't actually have to do that. However, in the interest of being thorough, we reached out to 6 companies, local companies that we've had experience with in the Bucks County area to do that work. One of those companies was willing to provide a quote. They had walked the site. They had looked at the hardware on the site. They had looked at the wood on the site that would need to be done in the windowsills, and understood that they need to match those things up, that the shutters themselves, they would have to take off site to prevent any potential contamination on the site with the abatement. So that quote is before you for consideration for $10,950.
do I have a motion?
So moved. Oh, I'll second.
Thank you. Fred made the motion and Dan seconded. Is there any discussion? Dan, I'm going to let you start it off.
Okay, thank you. So, it's one of the things we always struggle with in the township is how to maintain and keep up and improve our township-owned historic buildings, right? Older buildings can be more difficult to upkeep, but especially when we're trying to maintain their historic integrity. So at the same time, we have safety concerns with the lead. So I guess my main questions, Kurt, they fall in both categories. One, we want to make, or I guess comments, but they're sort of questions. One is we want to make sure first and foremost that the contractor here is qualified and able to complete the lead abatement work safely per all PADEP, OSHA, EPA, et cetera standards, and that we can make sure that the job is done safely both at their facility and whatever work they do at the building is done in such a way that they're not doing more harm than good. That's number one. Number two is I sort of touch this in my day job, but not all the time. With respect to historic buildings and National Register listed items, there's always a concern with maintaining the integrity of the building, historic integrity of the buildings. So the other item that we want to look for is to make sure that, when I look at the summary, it involves window sills and hardware and shutters, and a few other pieces, right? But we can't replace those with modern hardware from, Home Depot or Lowe's that I might put on my house that is not historic. We have to replace it in a certain way to maintain the integrity. So I just want to make sure that this contractor knows that, is working in that vein, and we're not going to have to go back and fix something after the fact, let's say, because they chose to price it based off of going to whatever supplier and getting a modern, changing it out to look more modern and not maintaining the integrity. So if you could, I just said a whole bunch there, but if you could address that, I would appreciate it, or Andy or whoever else needs to. I'd appreciate that.
I think, well, first off, I appreciate that, but I would say to you, and I'm saying this respectfully, I think that goes from our perspective without saying, you know what I mean? That in the end, the intent here is to match things up in the way that they currently are, that the wood matches, that the shit, everything. So in the end, we'll start with the first part of your question. Yes, they are certified for all lead-based paint pavement. Again, there are 26 of them. They would be taking them off site, as we said, and they have all of their certifications that make them qualified to do so. They also did walk the site with public works staff to go through each of those items, to look at the sills, to make sure it was clear that was the expectation, and they certainly conveyed that to us, that they understood that to be the case. I would say as well, if this is awarded, we will be out there as they start this stuff. Not that I'm anticipating any, but if in fact there was some hiccup there, that labor or something got confused, that would stop before it would start, and that we would make sure in the end that they had done this per the discussions that they had with staff. So I don't know if that answers all your questions, Dan. Certainly, I don't want to have hardware replaced with things that are 99 cents at Lowe's, right? That I find too cheap for my own house, let alone for a township property that we know is certainly important to a lot of people.
Yeah, just quick follow up on that. I thank you, Kurt. I know we're walking with staff and we get a fairly good understanding of what's there versus maybe what we want to not replace it with, but I guess replace it with something in kind is the way to say it. Would it be helpful, now that I'm liaison to HARB, my first time here, they get me thinking about all this stuff a little more. Would it be helpful to engage someone from HARB with some background there, just to do a walkover to help the township staff make sure they did the right thing as an sort of a quality control?
That's up to the board to say. Listen, I'll still say this. We watch what contractors do, but I'm not going to be standing over their shoulder every second while they're doing it. I mean, much like Andy inspects projects and things that we would do, we would take the same approach with it. My preference is that staff would oversee that. But again, I get it.
Yeah, no, it's more, and sorry, Suzanne. It's more of a sort of like Andy does when he might walk a project after the fact and sign off on it for payment. If the folks I have, the folks at HARB are the ones usually that know that. There may be others, obviously. See if one of them might be willing to walk with staff to just before we sign off. You're on mute, Kurt. Sorry.
Again, I'm sorry. We will certainly keep an eye. We will have staff there, whether that is the public works director, whether that's Jim, Andy, or whatever, checking on this. Again, this has been something that's been sitting there for about 6 months or so to do. Those, I think, as everyone at the AOY knows, we took those off, I think, in April or May. And I know they have been sort of chomping at the bit about when are we going to get these back up. And we started looking at these options this fall. We'll certainly provide whatever oversight that the board thinks is appropriate to make sure that we don't end up with something we weren't anticipating.
Fair enough.
And again, I have no problem calling, whether it's Jim Majewski to go over there, that certainly is a PE, or Greg Hucklebridge that's a PE, or our own PE sitting here to make sure. So.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to take it to such a, layperson level, right? But I think I've been watching this old house since it started. And what amazes me now when I see them doing those kind of rehabs is the necessary steps to be in compliance with lead paint, scraping, removal, however you want to phrase it. And I'm pleased that we have a contractor who's going to be able to do that in a way that keeps the shutters themselves safe. And, I don't want to say more importantly, right, but we're not doing them on site. We're not having lead paint fly onto the farm. We're doing it in the most appropriate manner possible. I know that, I've spoken to several of you. There is a commitment, details to be determined, trying to wrestle to the ground. How do we deal with these properties, all of these properties, just not the ones that people may see more on Patterson Farm. So there's big stories and little stories intertwined here. But I'm happy that we found a vendor who can make these repairs, and without belaboring the point, we won't see hardware from Lowe's installed. So is there any other discussion items, John, Fred, any other? So with that, Monica, is there any public comment?
Yes, we have Lisa on the line.
Okay. Lisa, please state your name and address for the record.
Lisa, can you please press *6 to unmute?
Thank you, Lisa. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, 156 Pinnacle Circle. I got to mute my TV.
And your name, please.
Lisa Tenney, Tenney, 156 Pinnacle Circle.
Thank you. Did you want to go ahead then, Lisa?
Oh, yes. Happy New Year to everybody. I just had a comment. I'm kind of calling on behalf of Patterson Preservation. I'm glad you're starting to address many citizens' concerns about the decay of this property. I'm both a donor and a concerned citizen. And I do think that it's a good idea for the Board of Supervisors to allow input of those individuals, maybe on the Historic Commission, or maybe who have been most historically involved in the property and knowledgeable to contribute decisions on how and this restoration should progress. This is a property whose beauty is captured on a daily basis by local photographers, and I think appreciated by all of us, especially during, the COVID. So those are my feelings about that, and I hate to see this property decay. And I haven't lived here very long. I'd also like you to consider perhaps paving. It's a small part of the road. It's South Esther Lane or road or drive. I'm not sure which. It's a small little road that enters into several neighborhoods. It's across from North Esther Road that's already been paved, as well as Big Oak Drive. So if it doesn't get put on today, sometime in the future it should be considered, because it is getting a little holes and it's decaying as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Have a good night. Happy
Yep,
New
you
Year.
too.
Is there any additional public comment, Monica? Monica, you're on mute.
Yes, you have Donna on the line.
Thank you. Donna, if you're there, would you please, oh, you're on mute, Donna. Please unmute yourself.
Star six will unmute.
Star 6.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Please state your full name, Donna, and your address.
All right, it's Donna Doan, 2814 Langhorne Yardley Road in Langhorne. Calling on behalf of myself and Patterson Farm Preservation. I just wanted to let the public know I did ask the board not to discuss this matter tonight. I did request that it be taken off the agenda until such time that further bids could be accepted for this project. I have several concerns about this contractor and the way that the bid was put in. I think that we could get a lot more value for our taxpayers' dollars with a professional contractor that does this type of work all the time. I did a little bit of research on the contractor. He seems to be politically well connected, and he also is a specialist in roofing, which doesn't really qualify him for doing any of the work that he's being considered for in this project. There's concerns about adequate insurance with this contractor. There's concerns about the clarity of the contract itself. There are missing information. What happens to our shutters if they're destroyed by a fire while they are at this contractor's shop? Is he insured for that? I think that a lot of these repairs can be done quickly, and that's what we'll get from this contractor. It can be accomplished by spring, but this will not be the quality of work that this property should have. Now, I talked to Iconic Windows today. I talked to Mainline Shutters. They are both very, very interested to bid this job. The quality of the work that they can provide is probably going to last upwards of 40 years as compared to what this contractor will give us, which will have to probably be done in another 5 years. So I think there's plenty of time. I think we need to have a clarity here. We need to have a fair bidding process. I think it's very convenient that this contractor made his bid $10,950 to stay underneath the $11,000 limit, and then also added in that, well, there could be a change order. So we can also almost assure ourselves that there will be a change order. So let's take time. Let's write a crystal clear contract. Let's not have township staff overseeing this. Let's have people who are educated about this. The Historic Commission must be involved. And I think that there's time to do it and do it right so that when we do spend these dollars, we will get the maximum benefit, the enduring preservation. That's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Kurt?
I just want to point out a couple things if I could. The $11,000 amount isn't there's no magic number with that. The magic number that's typically outlined is about double that, an amount that goes from being something that we can award this way versus something that needs an outright bid to it, which is in the $20,000.
It's $21,300 something.
The point I was making about $11,000 was that something under $11,000 does not require us to attempt to get multiple quotes. And I'll make a distinction between quotes and bids, right? So in the end, we did seek out more than this company. We went out to this company. We went to Nolan Construction, Munns Construction, Thomas Mack Construction. We reached out to Bucks County contractors that we either had experience with or that we had others that we knew that had experience with. this was done by staff. There are no political connections here with this or any of those others. It was the Public Works Director reaching out to those companies. There would be a requirement for insurance to audio as part of all of this. So, and again,
John, is something wrong? Because we can hear you talking, John. John?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's all I had to say. So again, those amounts that I was referencing had to do with trying to get more than one price, which we did. Even though the amount fell under that, we did reach out to 6 contractors total.
Thank you for that detail. Monica, is there any additional public comment?
Yes, Adam is on the line.
Great. Adam, can you state your full name for the record and give your address? Please unmute yourself.
Star six to unmute.
I keep thinking of call forwarding or call back.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, thank you, Adam. Please state your name and your address.
Yes, this is Adam Butler. I'm at 372 Kingwood Road, and I work for Iconic Windows, actually, and I'm here to speak for Patterson Farm Preservation. My biggest concern here, there's a few things. First, I heard you guys speaking of lead abatement, and I know legally, are we speaking of lead abatement or are we speaking of renovation? There's a major cost difference and approval. Most contractors are not approved to be abatement firms. I don't know if this firm is one. I don't think you need an abatement company, but that is a major legal issue for sure. But my other concern is, has this contractor ever actually done shutter work or really any historic preservation? I hear all the other companies that you contacted, but they don't appear to have done much preservation work or historic work. And it's a major difference. Choosing materials, I've seen the contract, and it isn't very detailed of what is covered, what is not covered, the approach of how to go about it. So it's very concerning. And so that's my biggest issue is I'm worried that you're not going to get your money's worth, and that a company like ours or Mainline Shutters or Building Preservation Services could do a much better job at a cheaper price, possibly. And so I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay.
John, are you back with us?
I'm back. I can hear you now, and I understand now you can hear me.
It's all good. Monica, is there any further public comment?
No, there's no further public comment.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, with that, call the question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 12, the solicitor's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I was remiss in not reporting on the executive session from the reorganization meeting. So let me clean that up so we have and I thank Janelle for reminding me of that. There was an executive session on January 4th, 2021. It began at 7 p.m. and ended when the reorganization meeting began at 7:30. I believe all board members were present at the executive session, and items related to potential litigation were discussed at the executive session that night. Tonight, an executive session did occur between 6:45 p.m. and 7:30. All board members who are present at this meeting attended all or part of that executive session, along with myself, Chief Caluzzi, and Mr. Ferguson. Items related to litigation, real estate, contracts, and informational items were discussed at that executive session. Now, before you under this report is resolution number 2439 for dedication of the public improvements for the reserve at Yardley, also known as Freeman's Farm Development, and a final escrow release subject to audit by the township. By way of background, this was formerly known, for those who may have been in the township for a while, as the Ferry, F-E-R-R-I tract. It's on the south side of Big Oak Road, not too far from and across the road from the BAME School Complex. The Remington Vernick provided us with a list of different areas to be subject to land development dedication and recommended acceptance in a letter dated November 25th, 2020. To delineate those, there are some open space areas that are all going to be dedicated to the homeowners association, which will not be subject to township oversight. Also, sanitary easements related to the sewer will not be dedicated to the township because that area is serviced by the Township of Falls Sewer Authority. However, there are many right-of-way for Chapman's Court, also right-of-way for Big Oak Road, several drainage easements, utility easement, snow storage easement. All those have been reviewed. Adequate deeds and descriptions have been supplied and filed, and this is now ready for dedication for the public improvements as indicated in the resolution. And I've tried to do as best as I can to substitute for my partner, Barbara Kirk, in this, who prepared and did all hard work for this. Unfortunately, she had a death in the family, so that's why I'm subbing in for on this particular matter. So anyway, that's essentially a summary of what is before you for Freeman's Farm.
I'm so sorry to hear about Barbara's loss, Dave. I did not know. I'm sure on behalf of the board,
Thank you. Yeah, she's doing fine, but she appreciates the thoughts, and she would otherwise have been here, and I think probably would have been here anyway had we not told her to take the night off. So, well, thank you.
So with that, may I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2439, the dedication of public improvements for the reserve at Yardley.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Fred. Not in that order. Dan, Fred made the motion. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Dan.
I'll ask this usual question, both Dave and Andy, I guess, since we're looking at, escrow release. Are you both obviously subject to township audit, but to date, are you satisfied with all items on the checklist that were at least at that point prior to audit to let it
From my
loose?
perspective, I would say yes. I would defer to Andy on the more technical aspects. I would certainly, with the legal descriptions and everything else that we've received, I think we're satisfied. Andy, I don't know if you have any other input or comment.
The only other input I would say is that all work on site has been completed. There was an issue where there was some construction debris that was within one of the open spaces that had been raised as a concern by neighbors, and they were out there several weeks ago. I guess it was the day before that large snowstorm hit, and they were cleaning that up. So all the site work has been completed.
And no issues with the conservation district, stormwater, any of that stuff?
No issues. Yeah, they signed off on the notice of termination and operation and maintenance manual.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and Andy, I know, was it a year ago or a year and a half ago, there was a drainage issue there that got resolved. But I haven't heard anything since then, so I'm assuming that that's okay. Remember, the person was concerned about a drainage problem?
Yeah, that was an issue where I guess their lawn was seeded, and the neighbor's lawn had sod put down, and so there was a little bit of a change in grade there. And yeah, in following up with that had been addressed a while ago.
They were responsive, as my thought was.
Yeah.
No, it's.
Kurt, you had something?
Just a couple of points since we've had some people call. First, I just want to reiterate, and if Dave did this, Dave, and I apologize, I had to step away for 10 seconds. We clarified the open space, correct?
Yes, that was one of the first things I mentioned.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people know that, because I actually had some calls about that open space is the HOA's open
space. Yes.
And secondarily, if and when this is approved, obviously then we will notify the Public Works Department regarding salting and plowing. I know people have called, are very concerned about that. We've only got hit with the one storm, but that as this passes tonight, Greg will be notified, and that will be on our list to add, and we'll take the guys out there to make sure they know where that route is added, and that will be taken care of.
Any further discussion from the board? Control yourself, Dan. Any public comment?
There's no public comment on this topic.
Okay, with that, I call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Great job.
Aye.
Great, thank you. The motion carries 4-0. All right, continuing on with our
Yes,
solicitor, we're moving on to item number 13,
Yes,
zoning hearing board.
Next on the hit parade, there are two zoning hearing board matters that are before the board tonight. We are recommending deferral to the zoning hearing board in both, but to read them separately. First, Vincent Repertorio is requesting a variance for a property located at 528 Viscount Road in order to permit construction of an in-ground pool, patio, and pool house resulting in greater than permitted impervious surface. Impervious surface in that district is 18%. It's one of the more established neighborhoods, and most of the homes there are already over. It's 23.2% now. Requested increases to 31%, but they've also proposed to offset with a seepage bed and other mitigation efforts. This is, as I'm sure the board and the public are well aware, an increasingly common application in the COVID era for in-ground pool construction. So again, we recommend deferral unless there is some sentiment on the board. Otherwise, and this property is not in the flood zone. So hearing nothing to the contrary, then we assume deferral is appropriate. Next, John and Deborah Perry are requesting a variance for property located at 1 Twin Circle Court in order to permit construction of an in-ground pool, resulting in greater than permitted impervious surface. Again, this is a rather established neighborhood. It's going from 24% to 26%, again, where 18% is permitted. And they're also proposing a 3-foot infiltration trench for mitigation, similar to the other matter and many other matters that have come before the board in the last several months, unless there's a contrary sentiment. And again, this is not in the flood zone. We recommend deferral to the zoning hearing board. And if that's the board's wish, we will then move on. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to discuss anything? Should I ask if there's any public comment?
You didn't, but I kind of ran through that quickly, so that'd be on me.
There's no public comment.
Okay, then moving right along to agenda item number 14, zoning, inspections, and planning.
Because we have Jim on here to bring him in.
Good evening, Jim. You were there for a second, and then
There we go.
There you go.
I think I was pressing the button too fast. Good evening. Tonight in front of you, the board, are several certificates of appropriateness. These are for properties that are located either in the Edgewood Village Historic District, which is on the National Register of Historic Places, or that as part of the development agreement for the shopping centers, for the Lower Makefield Shopping Center and for the Edgewood Village Shopping Center, had a requirement that any improvements to the exterior of the shopping centers be sent to our Historical Architectural Review Board for the recommendation of the Board of Supervisors for a certificate of appropriateness. In the case of this one, the first one is at 1700 Yardley Langhorne Road. There's a new business going in, the Dogwood Skate Shop, which is currently a business that's located in Langhorne Borough, and they are proposing to add a business sign in front of their property. They actually had this up a few days ago, last week, just so everyone could see what it looked like. It's basically a burgundy sign, 31 inches by 41 inches with white lettering, and it'll be post-mounted, and the Historical Architectural Review Board recommended that the sign be approved subject to the post being painted either the color of white or black. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the sign.
I was able to watch the meeting. I know more about the post than I ever thought I would know about a sign post, so I'm good. Anybody else have anything they would like to discuss? Yes, Dan.
Actually, would you like me to make a motion?
Well, sure. Why don't you do that?
I'll flip it on you a little bit. I'd like to make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness for 1700 Yardley Langhorne Road, Dogwood Skate Shop.
A second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Any discussion?
I can say that as the new liaison to HARB, I was involved in that very detailed discussion about this sign. I think everyone, it's going to be a neat business, and I think there was a lot of thought that went into the sign and some other items that will be coming before the board in the future, I think. But generally speaking, I think HARB was in favor of the sign as designed and with the nuance that Jim laid out. It's going to be a nice thing to add to the community.
Agreed. Any more discussion? Monica, is there any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Then with that, we'll call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Welcome Dogwood Skate Park. Look forward to stopping in. Not that I would skate, but moving on.
Yeah, I believe they're intending to open up sometime in April. So look forward to having that in our community, right across the street from the new place with the orthodontist and the pizza Di Lorenzo's. Also, we have another application for 657 Heacock Road, and that is the property that is the Rite Aid that's located in the Edgewood Village Shopping Center. And hold on a second. I'll bring that up on my screen. And currently the Rite Aid has just the big block lettering, Rite Aid Pharmacy. They do have a little symbol that on the graphic that you see on your screen is covered by a wreath. I guess this picture was taken sometime around Christmas. They're actually planning to change the siding to match their new company branding for Rite Aid that you may have noticed and seen at Rite Aids throughout the area and I believe throughout the country. They're basically going to take that regular facade and they're going to change it into more of a different color. It doesn't really show up on this graphic, but it will still look like that board type of texture. That is one comment that the HARB was concerned about, that it's not just a blank facade, but it will look like board on board as it does currently. It'll just be the different color. And the new sign has the Rite Aid new logo that they've rebranded, along with the mortar and pestle that I think kind of looks even more historic. Our Historical Architectural Review Board unanimously recommended to the Board of Supervisors that this be approved as submitted.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the proposed signage from Rite Aid for 657 Heacock Road.
Thank you, John. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Fred. Is there any discussion?
So, Jim, are they changed? Sorry.
It's okay, Dan. Go.
Madam Chair. They're changing not only the sign, but the maroonish. Sorry, my crayon box wasn't that great, but the maroonish siding to the tan flat face, or
correct.
Okay, kind of like that maroon siding.
I did too, frankly.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure I was seeing that correctly. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Monica, is there any public? I'm sorry, John, did you want to say something? No. Okay. Monica, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
With that, then we'll call a question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Go ahead, Jim. Take it away with C.
The next application is also for the Rite Aid in the Lower Makefield Shopping Center that's adjacent to the Giants supermarket. And okay. And I'll call that up in a second if I can press the buttons right. Basically, right now, the existing facade of the building is the blue coloring, once again with the old Rite Aid Pharmacy block lettering. The applicant proposes to take that and do the new branded Rite Aid signage. It'll also have that wood sort of texture on the facade where the Rite Aid sign is, along with the new mortar and pestle and Rite Aid lettering that is their new branding. And the Historical Architectural Review Board unanimously recommended approval of the application as submitted.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? Monica, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
So with that, I call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Okay. Item number 15, public comment. Monica, do we have anybody on the line?
Yes, we have Sue on the line.
Great. Sue, I'm assuming you know how to unmute? I don't actually see you there yet.
So you can press star 6 to unmute.
Sue, please press star 6 and then state your full name and your address for the record. Sue, can you hear us? And if you can, you press star 6 to unmute yourself. Monica, is there somebody else that maybe we could put Sue back out and help her unmute and take the next person?
There isn't anybody else, but we can try and pull Sue out and help her. And then
okay, great. Thank you.
Sue dropped out of the call, so if she comes back in, we'll let you know.
Okay, well, let us close public comment, but then let's move along. But as soon as Sue comes back in,
you can reopen it if she comes back.
Yes, we'll take Sue's call. Are there any discussion items? We'll move along to supervisor reports. I'm first. Okay. I was happy to join the EAC at another very successful styrofoam collection event. Really was able to fill up almost a full truck and almost a second full truck, all carried out in a socially distanced, safe manner. Really a great work, the service that they provide, and kudos to our residents for saving up styrofoam so that it can be appropriately repurposed. And that is really the only comment I have for tonight. Moving on to James, who's not here, so we'll skip along to Fred.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. John?
Yes, a couple of quick items. First, the Citizens Traffic Commission met on Monday to discuss items of upcoming development projects in the community and traffic impacts. One area that they had expressed concern about was there is a group in Regency at Yardley that is concerned about traffic on Big Oak Road. They want to come before the Citizens Traffic Committee at their next commission, the next meeting. And there was an ask if potentially we could either get some support from our traffic engineer, answer questions from them, or any background information that we might have from prior discussions with Regency at Yardley, the residents who are concerned about specifically crossing Big Oak Road to go between the folks that are the south part of Regency to go to the clubhouse on the north side to have safe pedestrian transportation or transport between the two. The Trenton Mercer Citizens Airport Review Board met I think it was the 6th, that Thursday of January. A couple of key items. One is the committee is working on developing a letter to the New Jersey DEP to address concerns about how Mercer County is dealing with upgrades to the airport and the concerns that they have that Mercer County is structuring projects such that an appropriate environmental review is not being completed. I have arranged for the board to speak to a former New Jersey DEP employee with many years' experience to help in drafting the letter. The other issue that the Trenton Mercer Airport Review Committee was looking for was a contact with Senator Robert Casey's office to help in advocacy. They have obviously had discussions with Representative Fitzpatrick and Senator Toomey. I was able to get them a couple contacts at Senator Casey's office, one of whom is actually a Lower Makefield resident, so that's certainly helpful in terms of helping them get access to the senator, who has always been tremendous in every interaction I've ever had with him and his staff. So hopefully they're going to take a fresh look at the concerns of the Trenton Mercer Airport Review Committee and see if there is an area where they can be constructive with the FAA and in advocacy within Congress. And those are the only two of my groups that met in the last couple of weeks.
Dan?
Sure. I'll be brief here. Planning Commission did not meet for the first meeting of the month, but they do have a meeting scheduled for the 25th of this month, so next week. Not entirely positive what's on the agenda yet, but that will be public pretty soon. Excuse me. Historical Commission met. Unfortunately, they meet before I get out of work, so I have to go back and review their minutes. Harb, you already heard the primary issue that we discussed there. There are a few other items that will be coming before the board later. And then it seems like everyone met for me in the last few weeks. The Electric Reliability Committee also met and had a pretty good discussion. I guess the main thing is they're definitely proponents of bringing PICO to the Board of Supervisors for a public meeting soon, so that we just want an update as to if we've had any interactions or if we've been able to get them on the schedule, as it were, for a supervisors meeting.
Okay, thank you for that update. I don't know if this is appropriate, but could we circle back to something that John mentioned in the CTC? And Kurt, John, however, would it be appropriate, right? We've had a lot of activity along that roadway. And I know, John, you had mentioned providing materials. Does it make sense to try to, I know that's a PennDOT road, but even that kind of confuses me.
Well, actually,
it's our road.
That section is our road.
So that portion, okay, thank you for that. Does it make sense to ask Joe to look at it again in totality with all that has changed? And, you know, we know that, well, I'll leave it at that and see what is appropriate to discuss.
So again, you know, Joe is relatively new to the township. He came on, whatever, was it maybe a year or so ago. I mean, listen, the issue, I've gotten calls, I know you all have, about safety concerns. I know Chief Caluzzi has. I mean, I would just add a caveat with it. Certainly Joe can be available to hear concerns, meet with the committee. But what I would add to that is prior to that, and I don't want to put Chief Caluzzi on the spot, certainly I know Tom in the police department has been involved in all of these issues, that maybe Tom helping Joe get some perspective in terms of what's happened, what's been discussed, what he thinks is problematic for context would be useful. And, you know, Joe taking a fresh look at it as far as, along with Tom, what's possible, what are, you know, different prospects for stuff that could be done, both intermittent safety measures that can be done, maybe not at significant cost, that could be helpful, including maybe other options that may be pricier. And in the end, then the question is going to be what rises to the level to meet warrants and stuff for bigger issues. But I think Joe, in collaboration with Tom Roach, even if Tom wouldn't participate in a meeting, to at least help him have perspective, and maybe the chief would want Tom to participate. I don't know, but I would think both of those individuals could directly or indirectly participate with the committee to flesh those issues out.
Kurt will certainly be willing to take a look at the road in its entirety. And if, John, you would like to email me with specific concerns that came up at the CTC meeting, that would be very helpful also. And then I'll coordinate with Joe and Tom, and we'll get on it.
Yeah, I will do that as we speak. There's a couple other elements we need to consider that are, there's a potential for having a walkway in front of the Octagon Center connecting Regency to the
Yardley Woods.
Well, no, it's the sidewalk that should be in front of Octagon that's required as part of that. And so then the question is, the crossing is a little further down across where Yardley Woods is. That's not supposed to be a light. And I think, and there's reasons why it's not, but there could be pedestrian stuff, and the connection, those two could address some of the issues. But I will get you the stuff from the group.
Thanks, John.
Great.
And let me so John, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I still think, because I know the board has been faced with a lot of these questions, that in the end, I think it's important for you all to know, what is possible. There's lots of discussions about what people think and what they want. And I think until we sort of work to quantify those possibilities for you, you'll all be spinning in circles until the professionals take a look and give you their insights.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Monica, any chance Sue is back?
No, she's not back.
Okay.
Sue just returned. We'll bring her in right now.
Oh, she's back.
That's our magic.
Okay, do I have to?
You're good. You were good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sue. Please state your full name and your address.
Terrific. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Susan Herman, President of Residents for Regional Traffic Solutions, Inc., P.O. Box 285, Newtown, PA. I'll be reading a letter into the public record that we emailed to the Board of Supervisors on January 15th. The letter asks that you reinstate general public comment to the beginning of the agenda for Board of Supervisors meetings. And now the letter. Quote, Dear Chairwoman Blundy, Dr. Weiss, and Supervisors Grenier, McCartney, and Lewis, we respectfully request that you acknowledge receipt of this email. As you know, our nonprofit organization, also known as RRTS, was founded in August 2001. Our purpose is to engage in public awareness as to traffic issues in the Central Bucks County area. We focus on issues related to transportation, infrastructure, and the impact of transportation-related decisions on regional populations. In January 2020, we expressed our concerns to you regarding your decision to move general public comment to the end of the agenda at Board of Supervisors meetings. The concerns that we expressed were realized. There was a significant decrease in the number of citizens who actively participated during general public comment. While it's notably messy and less expedient to have citizens actively participate in the democratic process, we believe that the debate results in better, more representative governance. With the exception of calendar year 2020, Lower Makefield Township has had a history of welcoming general public comment at the beginning of the supervisors meeting. This is something to be proud of. Indeed, the public has been grateful for this privilege over the years. It is difficult for citizens of all ages to wait until the end of the meeting to participate in general public comment. We respectfully request that you reinstate general public comment to the beginning of the agenda for Board of Supervisors meetings. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, then I think now that Sue has had her chance to speak, and I thank you, Sue, for calling back in, and I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. We are up to other business, which I don't believe there is any. So we can skip along to appointments to board and commissions, for which I believe there is one.
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Trish O'Donnell to the Disability Advisory Board.
Thank you, Dan. Second. Sorry, John. Dan was a little bit quicker that time. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and welcome back, although I don't think you actually ever left, and we appreciate all your good work on our committee. All right. There being no other business of the board, this meeting is adjourned. I wish you all a good night. Thank you.
All right.